Hi and welcome back to the program. In this video we're going to look at inheritance. And as we look at inheritance, we're also going to look at a very common question, which is why would you want to use class method or static method? The first thing I'm going to do is create a class student, like we have seen in the past. And it's going to have an init method with self, name, and school. And then self.name is going to be name. Self.school is going to be school. Self.marks is going to be an empty list. So we know this, and I'm also going to create an average method, which is going to return the self of some self.marks divided by len of self.marks. And I'm also going to add a third method. Well, I'm actually not going to add it, you're going to add it. And this method should return another student who is in the same school with a different name. So basically, the method is going to be called friend. And what it should do is should return a new student called friend name in the same school as self. Give that a go. Pause the video and think about it for a few minutes and try to implement what this would look like. It's not a trick question. Just try to do it as you think you might want to do this. You might want to return a new student in the same school. Okay, hopefully you've managed. And what I'm going to do is just say, really, return student. And this student is going to be called friend name. And that's the parameter. Friend name then goes into name. So all we're missing is the school, which should be self.school. Right? Perfect. So how does this work? Let's create a student called Anna. That's going to be a student called Anna and going to Oxford. And then the friend is going to be Anna.friend. And now we only need Greg, because we can assume that the friend is in the same school. This may not be true, but nevertheless, for the example. So, friend.name and print friend.school. And we know what this should give us. And it does say Greg and Oxford. Okay, so very good. The point of this video was to cover inheritance. So let's do that. I've created another class called working student, but now there's a couple of brackets at the end, and inside the brackets we've got student. What happens here is that the class working student contains all of the stuff that student contains. So you can essentially think of it as a copy and paste. Okay? If we type in pass. As you will be able to see in a moment, if we say something like, cut this, remove it from there and put it down here, but instead of student say working student, you should see the same thing printed out. And you do. Okay, so think of it as a copy and paste essentially. However, when we inherit things, for example, when an animal inherits some traits from the parents, that does not mean cloning. It means inheriting, and then there are some differences as well. And here's the same thing. So we can re-implement, for example, the init method with more stuff. So here, the init method of a working student is going to be name, school, and salary. If we were to copy and paste, we would do something like this to assign the properties. But this is duplicated code, really. It's already in student and it's already in working student as well. Since working student inherits from student, we must call students init method. So this looks rather confusing, but there's nothing to be confused about. What we've got is the superclass, student. Student is the superclass because it's the class above. And then we're going to call that class's init method, which is this one here. And that is going to set name, school, and marks. Name, school, and marks here. And then we're going to set the salary just as we would normally. So think of it again as a copy and paste. All we're doing really is calling this init method, which does these things here. Okay. So now what we can do is we can print, for example, print Anna.salary if we give her a salary, such as 20 quid an hour. Okay, so let's do that. Let's run this program. What do you think is going to happen when we run it? Are we going to get errors? Are we going to print things out? What do you think is going to happen? Take a guess. Hopefully you didn't see an error, because no error has come out. What we've received is Anna's salary, and also the friend's name and school again. Now here comes the trick though. Surely the friend should also have a salary. So what happens when we print that out? And I'm sure you know by now, but the way that I phrased this question, that it is a bit of a trick. But this time we get an attribute error. An attribute error happens when we try to access a property of an object, but that object does not have the property. So here we've tried to access the friend's salary, but it's telling us that a student object has no attribute salary. Wait a minute. Anna was a working student. How come Greg is a student? Well, why not? That's the way that friend was defined. So that's still going to be the case if we think of it as a copy and paste. The friend is still going to return a student. It's not going to return a working student magically. So this doesn't really work. So this is where you would use CLS, class method. If we make the friend method a class method, class method, then we can remove self, replacing it by CLS. CLS, remember, is a reference to the class of the thing that is calling it. So we can replace CLS like that. And then when we called Anna.friend, Anna is a working student object, so CLS is not friend, is working student. Sorry, it's not student, it's working student. Hopefully that was clear enough. So now when we copy and paste this thing down here, it is a proper copy and paste, and this is a working student. So when we call this method from a working student object, CLS will be working student, and we will return a working student. But we don't need to actually copy and paste it, because when we inherit, when a different type of student calls it, then we use the appropriate friend. However, it cannot be that easy. So what do you think is going to happen when we run this code? See if you can think exactly what error is going to be raised. Obviously, there had to be problems. We've got self is not defined now. So we tried accessing self.school, but we couldn't do that. So what we have to do is now the friend doesn't have access to self. So we cannot take the school from the object, Anna. We have to have some sort of origin object. And then when we do the friend, we have to do something like working student.friend, and the origin is going to be Anna, our object Anna. And now Anna is going to be the origin, Greg is going to be the friend name, and we're going to create a new student with that name and that origin's school. So this is getting slightly more complicated. Slightly more complicated. Let's save that and run it again. And what do you think is going to happen now? I wouldn't really expect you to be able to guess it. But now we have another traceback and the type error, which says the init method is missing one required positional argument, salary. And they would be right, because working student is the class, but working student's init method has 3 properties that need to be passed in, and when we run it here, we're only passing 2 properties in. So we need a 3rd property there, the salary. This is getting complicated. And after, we probably don't want to hardcode the salary, so we'll have to put in the salary here, and then we'll have to put in the salary here, and then when we do the friend, we'll have to give Greg a salary like so, and then we can run this, and then everything works, and we can even print the friend's salary there. And as you can see, we get 17.5, because that's the class, the object that we created, rather. Now, hopefully that all makes sense. And what we're going to look at in the very next video is a way to simplify this code slightly. And a way to make it a bit better. So stick with me and I'll see you in the very next video. And we're going to try to simplify this, make it a bit nicer, so that it doesn't grow more and more complicated every step of the way. So I'll see you in the very next video, and I'll catch you there.